This is a short tutorial on the game Scouts, in which you control a scout trying to earn badges during the weekend. The way you win is by having the most points at the end of the game. You get 2 points for each badge you have, as well as 1 point for each marshmallow you own at the end of the game. This, the game components are a material deck, an activities deck, some crafting cards, some master badges, and a few marshmallow tokens to give away. The setup is simple. You place the material and activity deck in reach of all players. You then draw 5 activities and lay them out. You place all the master badges as well as the crafting cards close to the table so people can see them. And yeah, each player draws 5 cards. After randomly determining who goes first, the first player starts their turn, and they can perform up to 2 actions out of 3 possibilities. The possibilities are as follows. They can play a card from their hand into their inventory. Their inventory is just the space in front of them. And to play a card from your hand, you would simply take it and put it in front of yourself. Now let's look at these cards. These material cards have resources and shapes. The resources are wood, tools, rope, and cloth, while the while the shapes are circles, squares, triangles, and X's. Some material cards only have 2 resources instead of a resource and a shape. So whenever you play a card from your hand to your inventory, and it is considered that you now have this resource. But if you were to play a card that has 2 resources, you need to flip it in the correct direction to signify what resource you have. This would mean that I have 1 wood and 1 cloth. If I wanted to play the wood instead, I should place it like this so that they stack, showing everyone that now I have 2 wood. The maximum inventory size is 6. Another action players may perform is to draw a card from the material deck. If you choose to perform this action, you may additionally discard 1 card from your hand to draw an additional material card. The last action you can play is to simply play a card from your hand onto the campsite. Since the campsite is empty, I will just place it wherever I like for now, but there are additional rules when there are cards in place. Playing a card from your hand to your campsite doesn't have any immediate benefits, but it will be useful later on. Moving on to the badges. There are 3 different varieties of badges that we'll be looking at. They are from the activities deck. We have ropes, arts and crafts, and sports. While they all have similar looks and give the same amount of points, they are gained in different ways. For example, if I'd like to craft the theater badge, I would need to have a rope and some cloth in my inventory, as well as a card matching a specific suit. So to match the requirements listed above, I would need to have rope and cloth in my inventory, as well as a card of a red suit. However, if one of the cards that you are giving already, such as a rope or cloth, already have a red suit, you don't need a third card. You can just use these 2 to craft the theater badge. If you meet conditions to craft a badge, you can craft it not as an action on your turn, but at any point during your turn as a bonus action. It does not take away one of your actions. So in this example, I would I would play these 2. I would use these 2 cards from my inventory to get this theater badge. I then place it near me so people can keep track of my score. But instead of discarding them, I will play them on the campsite. Now, the order and positions I can play them are optional, but since there already is a card on the playing field, I need to follow a few rules. First of all, when I place a new card, it needs to be touching an already existing card. For example, it has to be, for example, here, 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 or here. It cannot be diagonally. That is not considered touching. The next card I can play can also needs to follow these rules, but now it can touch the second card that I've placed. One restriction that you need to keep in mind is that the size of the campsite cannot be more than 3 by 3 on the first day. Each round the size grows a little bit. The first being 3 by 3, followed by 4 by 4, and lastly 5 by 5. In fact, the round ends whenever the campsite gets filled up each day. At the end of player's turn, if there are any empty activity spots, you need to flip a card from the activities deck there and place it. Another type of activity is sports. Here you will see the shapes that you can see in some material cards. But instead of playing them from your inventory, you have to play them from your hand. This means that you can be a bit sneaky about it, but you also have to keep in mind that at least one of the cards needs to match this suit, in yellow in this case. So at this point, I cannot play this canoeing card. The last card, the last badge type is ropes. And here is where the campsite sort of comes into play. If I were to have another yellow card in my inventory, um, and I was able to play it from my hand or by spending it on something, I would be able to place it. I would be able to place it here, and thus making this pattern noted here. I need to make this pattern in one of the specified colors, red or yellow. And since these cards are all yellow, I can now take this rope badge. To fill up the a filled up campsite would look something like this. As you perform actions and use cards, you slowly fill it up until the last is placed, and then the round immediately ends. All the cards from here are discarded, with one exception. You can also, at any point in time, if you have the materials, craft these crafting cards. You would need to spend the cost listed below, and as soon as you craft them, you take one marshmallow token with you. Remember, these are worth 1 point at the end of the game. These also have suits, which means you can also place them on the campsite, and you can also use them for the purposes of making ropes, for example, and filling up the campsite. The difference between the material and the crafting cards is that at the end of the round, the crafting cards remain on the board wherever they were. So they will act as sort of a restriction of where the campsite will need to begin next round. Once the final round is complete, you calculate your scores and the winner is declared. There are several Master Craftsman badges here, and they are basically gained by making 4 role badges, 4 sports badges, or 4 arts and craft badges first. Whoever makes those badges first gets this card, and it is also worth 2 points at the end of the game.